It would be so much more straightforward if the Talons of Weng-Chiang were simply a poor story. If we were talking about the Twin Dilemma or the Space Pirates, this would be a much easier conversation. But we're not. Unfortunately, we're talking about a story that is widely considered one of the most accomplished and enjoyable in Doctor Who's history. Written by Robert Holmes, featuring Tom Baker at the height of his powers, and boasting excellent pacing, structure and atmosphere, Talons is really a high point of the classic era. And yet, it's also deeply and unmistakably racist. The specifics really warrant a lengthy, dedicated analysis, but in brief, the story's antagonist is a white actor in yellowface, delivering a caricatured pseudo-Chinese accent. The Doctor himself adopts a fabricated Asian-sounding language in one scene, and the script is riddled with Orientalist clichés and outdated racial attitudes, many of which are either unchallenged or actively reinforced by the Doctor. Even by the standards of the time, this portrayal was pretty egregious. The serial was even refused broadcast in Canada for this very reason. The big problem is that the story's core narrative draws from the yellow peril trope. It's a Western city under threat from mysterious, malevolent Chinese people preying on white women. These ideas stem from 19th century imperial anxieties, particularly following the Opium Wars, and have long since been used to portray East Asian men in Western media as inherently sinister and threatening. So let's quickly address a common defense I hear a lot up front. This wasn't simply a product of its time. Doctor Who had already demonstrated much more thoughtful representation of Chinese characters in stories like The Mind of Evil, where the Doctor explicitly calls out a racist remark made by the Brigadier, and the roles are played by Asian actors, not by white actors in makeup. And for more recent context, The Robots of Death, which was the serial that aired immediately prior to Talons, featured notably progressive casting with a racially diverse ensemble, showing that inclusive choices were both possible and already being made within the series. So that gives a top line of the historical context, but the real question is, how should we interpret and engage with a story like this in today's world? Should we ignore it? Should we remove it from streaming services? Should we keep it there but with a disclaimer? In my view, it's important that Talons remains accessible. Removing it from platforms risks forcing the conversation into binaries, either full endorsement or outright rejection. Many viewers have a long-standing emotional attachment to this story, and suppressing its availability can entrench defensiveness rather than inviting reflection. Instead, I believe that we must normalise a more nuanced engagement with media, particularly the media we love. It should be acceptable and even encouraged to admire aspects of a story while acknowledging and critiquing its more pernicious elements. And this means creating space for dialogue, especially listening to the voices of those directly affected by the stereotypes and tropes on display. Doctor Who really failed its audience with this story. This wasn't merely an unfortunate product of its time, it was a clear and conscious expression of racialized narrative tropes. But now it's part of the show's legacy and we can't change that. But what we can and must do is engage with it critically, with an awareness of its impact and a commitment to doing better in how we interpret, teach, and remember it. That's my opinion on the subject. If you disagree, please do let me know in the comments and we'll try and have a discussion about it. And I would truly appreciate it if we could keep any comments kind and polite. Respectful discourse tends to be far more persuasive than aggression and rudeness. Thank you.